Welcome to the No Bull Political Arena. With your hosts, Sophia Nelson, Bill O'Reilly, Brian Mistro, and TJ McCormick. It's real voices, raw politics, and no bullshit. All right, welcome everybody to the No Bull Political Arena. I'm Brian Mistro. I'm here today with TJ McCormick, Sophia Nelson, Bill O'Reilly, and super excited to have my newest friend on, Michael Faulkner, who is being a guest for us today. We appreciate it. And we're going to have a lot of fun with this discussion today. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and there's certainly a lot of things to talk about with race in America. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. I won't hit you up first, Michael. I'll be nice on you since you're one of our guests. But I am going to ask you, Sophia, where are we at with race in America today? It's how much have we changed from the 60s? And, where are we at in the last several years of this Republican administration?
Well, I think you have to go back a little bit further than the 60s, right? You got to go back to, as you know, when it turned January 2026, we are in our 250th year as a republic this July.
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
This nation began half slave and half free. And that is a really important thing to remember. If you look at the census around 1774, something like that, 1/3 of this nation were enslaved people. You fast forward to the Civil War, the Emancipation, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments. Then you go to what would have been Reconstruction, which I think would have really changed our country for the better. Unfortunately, Lincoln gets assassinated.
Right.
Vice president from Tennessee becomes president. He's a Confederate dude. He undoes Reconstruction. Then you get 100 years of Jim Crow. And then comes to the scene Dr. King, Rosa Parks, others, the Montgomery bus boycott. And then that all moves President Kennedy, then President Johnson to the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the voting rights of 65. So when you look at that history, you have to look at the long history of race in this country. I think we've made a lot of progress. I wouldn't be an attorney and have all the successes I have as a Black woman in this country, the direct descendant of slaves on both sides of my parents' lineage, mother and father, and also a lot of white men in my family tree as well. So I think a lot of us have mixed race, and we have these stories about the tapestry of the greatness and the complications of this story of ours. I say all that to say I think we are in a mixed place right now. I think we are in a difficult place right now, but we've seen worse days, believe it or not, when it comes to race. And I know that might not seem that way. I don't let the silliness and the antics and the ridiculousness of the current occupant of the White House move me one way or the other. Donald Trump is what he has always been. And you can go back and look at the housing discrimination complaints in the 70s by HUD. You can go and look at the Central Park Five. He's got a long history, as did his father before him, of being not fond of people of color. So do I think we have problems? We do. Am I an optimist? I always am. And I think that this period will pass with the collective good efforts of people like this. And I would remind folks that today on MLK Day, Ronald Wilson Reagan, a conservative Republican, signed the Dr. King bill in 1983. I was in high school, I remember. Before that, my parents had to write a note to say, I want her to stay home from school. They allowed that if you're African American.
I did not know that. That's okay.
True. And so think about that. This conservative who a lot of African Americans aren't very fond of when you hear them reflect back. I think they'd take him over the current occupant any day. But Ronald Wilson Reagan not only signed that bill, but also did something no president before him had done. And he made a proclamation that on every Martin Luther King Day, presidents all followed him except for one, and we can all guess who that is today, did not issue that proclamation for the first time since 1983. So I think that you go back and you look at the Republican Party, and it has a storied history on race relations and the relations with from freeing the slaves to Jim Crow to Eisenhower sending the troops to Little Rock and on and on and on. We've lost that legacy as a former Republican here. I don't know what happens next, but I do think the country is in a bad place right now with the ICE raids and everything that's going on with that. But I'll let the good pastor here, the minister, speak to that point. And, those are my thoughts.
Yeah.
What say you, Michael?
Well, Sophia, thank you, and love this discussion. But the discussion, the issues of race, it goes back, like Sophia said, back to the history of our nation. I love our nation. I am a proud American of African descent, slavery on both sides of my lineage. I understand it. I get it. Slavery didn't start in America. Slavery, the enslavement of people and using people as chattel and as, forced labor goes back centuries.
Millennia.
So it's one of the it's part of the brokenness of mankind, of humanity.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
That people would oppress each other, and so I'm not minimizing it. I'm simply saying America has had its share of it. I love America because of its ideals. And not just the ideas, but the ideals, the principles. And that gives me standing and footing to fight, because we live in a republic that stands for equality of all people. And yes, that means sometimes we have crazy people in the White House that occupy the White House that don't believe in the principles of America, but we still have to, the ideals still have to ring true. Now, with regard to the Martin Luther King Day, I love it. I celebrate it. It's the only holiday that's in our country that's set aside for a preacher, right? So and that's, of all the things that Dr. King was, he was a Baptist minister. And a son of a Baptist minister and a grandson of a Baptist minister. And so he came from
my grandmother was good friends with his father, Michael.
Really?
He used to come and visit her in South Carolina all the time. Martin Luther King Sr. We have a beautiful letter that he wrote to her that we have framed. Yeah, just amazing.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Oh my
God! I have like no lineage whatsoever. I have nothing in my background. Nobody knows anything.
Mickey, as
I know you four people, and that's it. You're my claim to fame. I'm counting on all four of you to make something of your lives, because now I can drop your names. But go on.
Can I just ask a question specifically to Sophia and to Michael? The first 15 years of my career professionally, Martin Luther King Day was a holiday. It was off. The last 25 years, I've worked every single day, because most businesses, or a good number of those businesses, do not shut. And at the same time, then you have Juneteenth out there for June 19th, when in 1865 in Texas, it was a couple months after the war ended. Slaves were declared free. I forgot the general. You may know that, Sophia or Michael, who declared that. There needs to be a Black holiday in America that's followed, because America can't be America without the Black story. To me, Frederick Douglass, and we've discussed this, is a founding father, and he should be recognized as that. We couldn't meet our promise. We couldn't meet our creed while slavery existed. So to me, it's like America is missing this. Like, Martin Luther King's holiday has fallen apart. The government closes, the stock market closes, but most people, I don't think, really celebrate it. And Juneteenth popped out of nowhere. I think there should be some redoing of holidays to make sure there's an African American holiday in America, not for African Americans, for everybody.
And not for checking a box. Like Juneteenth.
Oh, African Americans and everybody.
Is the quintessential American holiday, Juneteenth.
Yes.
It should be so celebrated and so universally understood, so that it's celebrated appropriately. And I am currently doing my best Hakeem Jeffries by accident. I just realized what I was doing. The more hand gestures you make out of context, you are doing Hakeem Jeffries.
You are so funny. That's awesome.
I just saw myself. I'm just hyper self-aware. Thank you, Sophia.
What does the room think about that? What do y'all think?
A couple thoughts and I'll throw it to Michael. I think that this has happened with a lot of federal holidays now where the banks
Yes.
are closed and the markets and certain things that have to be closed. But a lot of stores look at it as an opportunity. Like I was having lunch today with our county executive here, and everybody was out chilling and drinking and eating because the day was off. So the businesses were making money. So I think that there's kind of this thought that, well, school's going to be closed and people want to shop and they want to eat. So let's be open. I think so. I think I get it. It's not that they don't celebrate it. They'll have specials like, we got happy hour specials, whatever, what have you. I do hear you though. And I think the country did President's Day for that exact reason, right? So we celebrate President's Day one time instead of every president's birthday. That way, everybody's got that one day off. So I think you're on to something. I did want to throw in a thought, though, what you said about Dr. King's dad. And people forget that Daddy King was a big Republican.
Yeah.
And in the 1960 election, when JFK was smart enough to call Coretta first before Nixon could get to her when Martin was in that Birmingham jail, Dr. King's dad felt like, hey, he reached out to my daughter-in-law, so I'm gonna, throw my weight behind him. So he was a real dude, as they would say back then.
He was a force.
He was powerful, and he did not play games. And I'm working on, I think this is book number 6 that'll come out in the spring, and it's about the country and the 250th anniversary. And the next book I'm going to write is going to be about my great grandparents on my mother's side. My great grandfather was a plantation owner's son in Georgia, and he ran off with my great grandmother, who was a slave. They grew up together as children. And after they ran off to Georgia, they couldn't get married, obviously, because of miscegenation laws. So they went to Oklahoma. And then after the Civil War, they went and moved out west to California and had 13 children, of which I am one of the progeny going down the line. But Grandpa Henry and Grandma Viney, and I talk about them because thinking about that first question that was asked and where we are, and I think about them a lot, and I think, man, how much did he love her? To run away with her on pain of death. And actually, we found the plantation. It's the Alfred Plantation in Georgia. We know where it is. He's listed as dead. The youngest son, he wasn't dead at all. He ran off with that slave girl.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to tell their story, and I'm really looking forward to doing that. And just, it's a love story, but it's an American love story.
It's an American love story.
Right? Yep. And I think we don't talk about those things enough, that yes, slavery was evil and odious and the most heinous thing you can ever do. It was in the Bible. It was against the Jews. It was against any group of people that have ever been enslaved. But I also think about the amazing journey that comes out of these stories of our grandparents and our great grandparents and our founding fathers. Jefferson owned slaves. Jefferson also had a slave woman, Sally Hemings, as mother of 5 of his children. Yep. And he spent more time with her than he did with his wife, who passed away fairly young. Yep. And he couldn't marry her. He couldn't make her legitimate, but theirs was a real love story, apparently, from everything I know. And I've done a lot of work with that. I say all that to say, and Michael, the stage is yours, is that I think your point is well made, Bill, that we need to take these things seriously. And TJ, I agree with you, but people aren't informed and they don't know. We're not teaching civics anymore.
Yeah, we don't celebrate the ideals of America. We don't celebrate it. We don't honor it. When I say secularization of America, I'm not talking about just religious versus non-religious. I'm talking about the mega narratives, the great narratives that make our country great. We don't know what makes our country great and distinctive anymore. And unfortunately, what we're witnessing, at 1500 Pennsylvania Avenue is taking us down a rabbit hole that's going to be even harder for us to get back to honor and truth and justice and things like, just when we thought imperialism was dead, whoa, it rears its ugly head again. again in our newspapers. Now, we the people, we don't agree with this. We don't. Who wants to take over Greenland? Are you kidding me? By force? I mean, it's like what? So there are seasons and different kinds of leaders, but to the celebration of a holiday that recognizes slavery was real in America and we as a people overcame it and are overcoming it, I think is a noble ideal that is fitting to become a popular how do I say to become a popular idea. I think it's important for us to realize it's not just about slavery. It's about pretty much anything that's sacred in America.
Yeah.
It's also about history, Michael. Like it's always, I
Right.
never liked that it was always Black History Month. I understood why that was, because the accomplishments of Black Americans were not celebrated like others. It made sense. But I hope we eventually get to the point where it's American History Month, because Black history is American history. We're so interwoven, all of us. There's culturally in so many different ways. And like that's why I think a Juneteenth is a legitimate national celebration. For everybody should truly celebrate that, because we're realizing our potential. That we're moving towards that. We're working towards that. We've been slow at it, but we're
We
trying.
If
Yeah,
you
and,
guys have ever watched the movie Lincoln, and boy, I tell you, what an amazing job.
No spoilers.
Oh,
Talk about the ending. Leave the ending
But, there is this, when you look at that and how he had to work to get those votes to abolish slavery.
Yep.
And the twisting they had to do and the machinations to do something that we're all looking at going, duh, like, really? Like, you really had people who wanted to prolong this thing into the next century? And when you think about that, that is something to be in all of that, in all white, all male, all white, all male Congress. There are no women, and there are definitely no people of color. Not yet, because you haven't hit Reconstruction. Think about the fact that that got done, considering the climate, considering the financial. Slavery was a money-making enterprise. Everybody should go to James Madison's Montpelier and look at their mere distinction of color exhibit. It is probably one of the best, most powerful, impactful. Monticello's good, but Madison's is better because it talks about the economics of the money and how this country got rich on cotton and textiles and tobacco on the backs of enslaved persons.
Sophia,
I was going to say an interesting little history tidbit for those that don't know. Europe was sitting on during the Civil War. Europe was sitting on the sidelines. They weren't getting very involved in it because they were used to having cheap cotton come across the pond.
Absolutely.
And they did not want to lose that, and they were concerned that by freeing the slaves, the price of their cotton and stuff would be going up. Now, Lincoln did, of course, what he did, and thank God that he did. But there's a little bit of history there that there was some trepidation across the pond about,
and the irony is they had ended slavery, 30, 40 years before, something like that. So
they considered a blockade.
Queen Victoria probably would have preferred the South one, to be honest, from everything that I understand from history. And, I think you're right. She was thinking about cotton and you would have had all kind of imports, tobacco, etc. But anyway, I think that, what fixes our country, guys? This right here. What we're doing is how we fix this thing and how we right our ship of state.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
Right,
So,
by the way, I was going to say, I have a copy of a map in my basement that explains so much of what happened after slavery. It's a map that was issued in 1863 by the American Red Cross, and it was sold for $1 a piece, and the money was given to the Army of the Potomac wounded. And what it was a map of the white and black populations of America. And you look into the South, and you had counties where it was 700 to 1 black to white. So when slavery didn't end the right way, and it didn't end the right way because white people down there were like, "Oh crap, we're screwed now." Like we did this, and suddenly we're the minority. And
Right.
obviously, but you look at this map and it becomes so clear of how it went. It never ended properly. It like the mule didn't come, the land didn't come, nothing happened right. And then we went to Jim Crow. And when you have an adjutant that doesn't get addressed historically, it never goes away.
And we keep seeing it rear its head, I think, is your
Right.
point. It keeps popping up, Michael.
Keeps popping up.
We have a tendency to look at the North and say, "Oh, you wanted to free the slaves," but no, not everybody in the North wanted to free slaves. They benefited from the industrial nature of it. Wall Street, all of that was built on the slave economics.
Yep.
I mean, I
100%.
tell people all the time, when you look at the insurance industry in this country, and who insured the slave ships? It was Holland.
Yeah.
It was the Dutch. And so you had all of these different enterprises involved in this thing. But then America becomes, who we are, and the slaves are free. Now what? And of course, as you said, Brian, the Reconstruction didn't happen because of Lincoln's death. But as a nation, where we stand right now, we need to educate our people on the history of our nation, the exact history. And there's a term, history from underneath, meaning history that's written not from the elite and not from the perspective of the elite, but it's written from the regular people, the people who are on the ground, the people whose grandmothers and grandfathers and great-great-grandparents have stories to tell about this.
Frederick Douglass, 1847 autobiography.
Right. Those are the stories. Those are the American stories that we need to tell, that we need to hear. We need to hear those stories that reminds us how great a people, in terms of the ideals of America, how great we really are.
Yeah.
Can I tell you guys one lost story just quickly? I'm so sorry, Sophia, to cut you off. I just quickly tell the story of Jenny Green. I ran across a woman named Jenny Green from a professor at Yale who refuses to return my emails. I don't know why, but I wrote a column on Jenny Green. Again, it was 1863 also. There was a young woman who escaped slavery. She was a girl. She was 11 or 12 years old. She escaped slavery in Virginia, and she made it. She got to Richmond actually it was 65. She got to Richmond where the Union Army was, and she was raped, this little girl. And the way she said it was so, she said, "He did something to me that only grown-ups are supposed to do." It was just so sad. She was a little girl, no education, obviously, had no access to it, and she sued. Lincoln put in, because some of the troops from the North were raping in the South, and Lincoln put in a law saying you can't do that. There was no law. This little Jenny Green sued, and she won. And this guy, General Butler, the guy went to jail for 10 years, and General Butler, who ran it, said he should have gotten the death penalty. But this little girl with no education, a runaway slave, took on an officer, it wasn't a general, an officer of the Union Army, and won. That's something every American should know.
What I was going to ask the pastor, to your point, and I think you're right, is how do we get there when at least a third of this country, probably a third, says that you don't have to be ashamed to be white now. You white people are being discriminated against. This is uncomfortable for my kids to talk about this. CRT and all the other things that they're saying. I don't see how we get there to talk about this stuff if we've got a good group of at least the southern states in this country, and probably a lot out in the central and the west, the upper west, right, that says we're not talking about this, we're not doing this, and to do so is un-American, and to do so is against my rights, and so we don't want to talk about it. I find that to be deeply troubling, because there's a lot of ignorance about exactly what we're all talking about. But we're all educated people who studied this. We read books. We're not afraid to talk about it. We got a lot of our fellow citizens that are just not there.
Well, I'd love to hear your I just want to throw one thing in,
Mhm.
at least from my perspective. It's not just white grievance. It's what I have seen, especially in the last 12 months, is white male grievance. And I think I even forwarded a tweet a little while back to you, Sophia, when I forget the administrator in the Trump administration that said this, but if you're a white
EEOC.
yeah. So yeah, that's exactly what it was. And they effectively said that if you're a white male and you've been discriminated, reach out to my office. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, I must have missed something somewhere. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
no, I 100%. What do you think, Michael? You agree with that?
Well, yeah. So listen. So my perspective, I always have to go back to God and humanity, right? And the brokenness in humanity. Because so my story,
Absolutely.
I went to Virginia Tech, and yes, in the 70s, and I experienced racism at Virginia Tech. So I'm in a sociology class, and I have a professor says, you people should not be here. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
He says, yeah,
Wow.
you
Okay.
people should not be here. And I'm like, what are you? So anyway,
That's
we go
Black
through this whole
Except on
thing.
Saturdays when you're winning their
Yeah,
football games. It's ridiculous.
we go through this whole thing, and I discover that this guy's really, he's a few bricks short of a load, but he's past his time with tenure. But it wasn't just about him; it was about the attitudes. But what was the way I was brought up was my mother always said, "You got to work twice as hard, so that when it's your time, you will be ready." So crying about racism, crying about how bad it was or how unfair it is that I wasn't treated equally, I was raised to understand that I was doing an uphill battle. I was raised to understand that uphill climb was how you climb. That was just how you had to make it.
Did it motivate you, Michael? Did it
Oh,
motivate you even
absolutely
more?
motivated me. It motivated me. It motivated everybody around me. It motivated our families. It motivated. But here's the thing. Here's the gem. It's the same motivation that we see in immigrant families. It's the same motivation. I preached Sunday at a Haitian church in here in Philadelphia, large church. And honest to goodness, I mean, to see the values, the hard work, and to see what it takes to make it, if you knew their stories and what it takes to make it. But guess what? That's been the story of every generation that has come to this country and
Irish,
made
all of
it.
them. You're right.
Every single one. That's what makes America great.
Exactly.
Now, concerning the African American journey here, we need to tell the story, but we need to tell it for the reason that says these are the values that we hold that made America great. Of all the stories that I've heard that you hear in terms of slavery and so forth, one of the things that always strikes me is you've never heard. Now, we all know that Black women mothered, nurtured, even nursed white babies. We know that. That was plantation life through and through. There is no
Wet nurses.
reported incident, none, of any abuse ever happening to white babies under a Black mother's care.
The relationship was
Zero. Zero.
Yeah.
What the value of life is but here's the thing. These are American stories. Yes, African American, but these are American stories.
Yes.
We need to embrace them as part of the richness of the fabric of what makes our nation great. We cannot handle it if we are divided. We cannot handle it if we allow ourselves to be torn apart, to be, pushed into these places that says, okay, diversity and inclusion is no longer needed because why? The scales are balanced? No, the scales they may never be balanced, but the richness of a company, of a school, of a system that has everybody included and makes sure that everybody that is there, that people have the opportunity to be there. My children, your children are richer for interacting and having an experience together. That richness, and we want that richness, and so we look forward to those things. And it's not going to happen if we allow white Christian nationalism to rear its head and not
Again.
have that the cut off the head of that snake. It's got to be called out. It's got to be dealt with. It's just got to be dealt with.
You know, Pastor, you make a good point. In Virginia on Saturday, as you all know, we inaugurated our first female governor in the history of the Commonwealth. She's number 75, and it took, we've been around since 1607 as a colony. We're first, and we've been around a long time. And Patrick Henry was our first governor.
Yeah.
And as I watched Abigail, great name, Abigail, for our first female governor, I watched her give her first address to the General Assembly this morning. And the Speaker of the House is an African-American male who was a Navy guy. And before that had been arrested as a teenager for being a piece of bad work, went to the military, and now he's Speaker of the House of Virginia.
Oh my goodness.
Nice. Love it.
The Senate Majority Leader is an 80-year-old African-American woman who used to be a Rosie the Riveter. She's 80. She worked on the ships in Hampton Roads. The Lieutenant Governor is Muslim, the first ever elected statewide, and the Attorney General is a black man. Now I want you to think about this. Is Virginia we're talking about. The Confederacy was here. This was Jeff Davis's home. Richmond was the home. I want you to, don't tell me we have made progress, because of course we've made progress. And I get really pissed when people say we haven't made progress. But the richness of that tapestry you talk about, Pastor, was exemplified right here. A female governor who's white, a Speaker of the House who's a black man, a black female Senate Majority Leader, a Muslim woman Lieutenant Governor, and a black male Attorney General. You ain't gonna find too many states, particularly in the South, that look like that. We're the upper South for sure. But when you go back to the history books, Richmond, Virginia, Lee, Richmond, Virginia, richest colony, the biggest. How many presidents we have from here? 8 of them. First 4 out of 5. I mean, you can go on and on and on, but we are no longer that place. And so I think that if we can do it here, and I think that having those people, all of those people, I don't agree with all of their political views. That's not the point. The point is that you get those people in a room just like us talking here, and we're talking, we're going to find something we agree on.
Sure.
We're going to figure out a way to get done what we got to get done, because all of our different life experiences are very important. I want to speak to white males for a second as the black woman on this panel. Scott Galloway is someone everybody should read. He's been doing a lot of really good work about males in general and the male loneliness gap and what's happening to men of this new generation. They're not thriving the way their baby boomer grandparents did or their Gen X parents did. And we've got to talk about, as a professor of philosophy and religion in my legal reasoning and writing class that I teach for those that want to go to law school, my white male students are the ones I have to keep my eye on, because they're quiet, they're not talking, they're not engaged, they're smart, they're bright, but there's this sense that the girls are running circles around the boys in general, which we need to talk about that. We want our girls to thrive, but something's happening with our white male young men, and they're getting radicalized by different things. And I use that word because I don't have a better one. And by that, I mean, when you don't feel like you have value, when you don't feel like you know how to contribute anymore, you feel like, well, I'm the villain in the room because nobody likes white guys. We can't have that in America either. That cannot be what we do either.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you.
But that's real. And we have to make sure that not just women and people of color have a place to belong. I think that what Galloway is saying is the discrimination quotient that we've all talked about here today from the 1800s, really, because you got to start with the end of slavery, right? Because you can't kind of deal with what happened before that because it wasn't equal. But you go down from slavery forward, we've done a lot of work to try to level the playing field for women and people of color. But his point was is that the white males of millennials and Gen X, because of diversity, equity, inclusion, don't miss what I'm about to say, and all the things, there's this sense that white males now are being pushed out, that they're not welcome, that they got to pay for what their forebears did.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
That's a real thing. And we got
and most white people were poor as hell during
Yeah.
slavery. Most white people were half starving.
You do know, I'm about to blow your mind with a fact that most people don't know, again, ignorance. You do know that when this country became a republic on July 4th, 1776, and when voting finally got established, etc., that only rich white men, white male landowners could vote, not poor white guys, not the guy who was the indentured servant or the whatever. I mean, people don't understand how much class
Yes.
impacts how you do in addition to race.
And
We
don't forget,
talk about
up until 1913, senators were not elected. Senators were
They were
appointed by
appointed.
governors.
Sure
And
were.
so, yeah, it's much of
We had
that has
black senators
changed.
right after the war. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So much of what I'm hearing, I can't help but think that, I've recently been on a real kick where I just been trying. I'll say to anybody that'll listen to me, and that number is shrinking daily. But I think if any of these things, if we're ever going to actually get to that critical mass, where I mean, first of all, I believe that America is and is not. Put it this way, if we're going to reach that critical mass where we stipulate that America is not, by and large, overall, definitively a racist nation, I think we long past that. I think we personally, just based on the election and re-election of Barack Obama, I think
I agree.
that tells you.
And Harris becoming vice president. We did have a woman vice president.
Absolutely. My thing is this. We're not really going to make real change for real people. We're not going to make this place really better or greater until we accept the fact that politicians, elected officials, with rare exception, actually don't care. They don't care at all.
Brother.
They are the least impressive people, generally speaking.
Have you gone to Congress and looked at how they look?
As a group.
It's
They
a
are
mess.
a bunch of lawyers. No pun. No,
Hey,
no,
stop
no
that.
thanks. No thanks. No thanks. No thanks. And
He tries me
reverend.
First, we kill all the lawyers.
There are a bunch of lawyers who get really wealthy, who look out for their own 2 square feet. They actually don't care. And the ones who stand there and find a podium and find a microphone at every, the ones you see the most care the least. I hate to say that, I hate to be a cliche, both sides of the aisle.
I agree.
They just don't care. And we have to stop looking to them. All right. And granted, they vote, they elect, they make the laws and all this okay, I get it. But it does, we're beyond the point of laws fixing things. And, if I think some of those fascinating videos when you see little kids talking to each other and they've done studies and stuff like that, where, children don't see color, don't see those differences until it's shoved in front of them by people looking to make a friggin' dime and make a name for themselves and sell a book and all these things. Again, authors, I love our authors. But anyway, you see where I'm going. I think that all of the conversation about making America what we all think America has always been meant to be should be kept as far away from elected officials as possible, because we're getting into the care business. We're getting into the business now. When we talk about MLK, We talk about this dopey white guy here. I think content of character, not color of skin.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was
people
going to.
I
Okay, yeah.
see judging people by the content of their character are not in Washington or Albany or Springfield or Sacramento. They're right over there. They live in that house over there. They live in that over there. They're in that liquor store that I just bought my wife wine at. That's where people are being judged by the content of their character. In Washington and everywhere else, they're being judged by the color of their skin on both sides, on many levels.
I think that's deep what you're saying. That's I think you're onto something, because my neighbors here in Virginia and your neighbors where you live, if somebody needs something, if somebody's sick, we don't care what they look like. Can I help? Can I do something? And it's reflex. Nobody's thinking about that shit except for the clowns that you just talked about. Sorry, Pastor, forgive me. I love Jesus, but I cuss a little.
Listen, it's so I came up with a theory called critical grace theory.
I thought it was TJ is correct there. Go on.
So critical grace theory is saying that we will only get fairness from God.
Boom.
And
Boom.
it is only because of his grace. And when you think about racism, where did racism begin? It began in the Garden of Eden, when the angelic race oppressed the human race, when Satan, created a ploy to allow to cause Adam and Eve to distrust God, separation from humankind from God, right? So
Now they
that was
distrust each other.
oppression.
Yeah.
They were created beings oppressing another. And ever since that time, human beings have fought against each other. One of the greatest stories of my life. So I had come to Virginia Tech, pretty open-minded, Catholic high school, blah, 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 blah. Friends that didn't really matter. Had a city championship team. We played in inner city DC. We didn't care. We were the McNamara Mustangs. We won, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
What year, Michael, was that?
This
what
was
year?
1973.
Okay. Yep.
So it was 73. It was the same year as the Remember the Titans, that whole story of in Alexandria, Virginia. So
you cannot be that old. That's no.
Yeah. So this is my experience. But when I get to Virginia Tech, I see swastikas, I see the stars and bars, I see every kind of imaginable thing, and all of a sudden within 2 years I am this angry black man. And then I have this religious experience where I truly commit my life to Jesus Christ. And now all of a sudden, it's not that I became colorblind, but I became a person who understood that God loved me for who I was. I was not inferior. God didn't love me because I was black. He didn't love me because I was a man. He loved me just because I was a sinner in need of saving, right? And he did that. And so my life changed. And now all of a sudden, so I look at the critical grace theory is we all need God. So the point of my story, my punchline is this. I ended up going to this all-white church. The classic joke, right? It's like, what? Here I am, this angry black man, newly converted. I end up going to this all-white church, except for this one Nigerian professor, right? And I asked him, I said, how do you do it? I said, how do you stand this, this racial divide, this cultural? He said, you know what, Michael? He said, I experience such tribalism in my own country. And people all looked like me. But because of the tribes where we were born, and he said, man's inhumanity to man. We may look at it as racially, but he said, it's just the sin nature. It's the sin nature. It's man's. We would find, if we all look the same, we'd find something to discriminate, some way to separate us.
Sure.
Why? Because it's in our fallen nature. So that from a religious perspective, that's my critical grace theory. We need the grace of God. We are all, there's a verse in the Bible says we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and truly we have. America's ideals stand out to me because they give us the best opportunity for fairness. They give us the best, they're the best picture so far in the human experience of allowing everybody to have a voice and to be worth, just on paper. As Dr. King said,
You
I
should have been in
just want
Congress,
you to
Michael.
be true to what you said on paper. Ooh, I love his speeches. I love his books, but he was just saying, let's just come back to the fundamentals of what we say we believe. And if we all aspire to that, we're so much better.
Well, I'm gonna take a little bit of a pushback and swipe. So I'm a Christian. I think everybody on our call here is. I doesn't matter if you are or not. I think Michael is. I'm not sure, but we'll go with that.
Last I checked.
So how do, from a Christian perspective, and following the Word of God, so how do you reconcile that with politicians? Because now I'm going to pull in TJ's comment, that are using Christianity or their faith in a way that is never, ever intended by God, but instead to get ahead. I won't name a couple of names. There's one right on the tip of my tongue. But, we have a problem with that of what I'll call false prophets coming in, okay, and, pretending that they're Christian for the only, which they, you can't say I'm Christian and then everything that you do after you say that is completely against the Word of God. Okay, it doesn't work that way. All right.
It's like the Methodists with slavery.
How do we deal with that? Because that is a number of politicians that we have, and that's what TJ was saying earlier. I blame the politicians. The only thing I disagreed with TJ about that is I don't blame the politicians. I blame us for voting them in. Okay, you can vote those people back out. Okay, but we're not. But
I don't know, Brian. The primary problem is 98% or 90% of elections are decided in the primary because people say their congressman is good, but everybody else's is bad. You see the point? And so people just keep voting in the same people because we don't have term limits. We have finance out of control.
Term limits.
It'll never happen. I wish,
term limits.
It'll never happen.
And open primaries. But yes.
It'll never happen. I agree, Sophia.
So I think we have to look beyond religion, beyond the person's exterior. I think we have to look for, how does that person value the Constitution? How do they see the Constitution? We elect people to lead our country, not to fill our churches, not to fill our synagogues, right? We elect people that we believe can be good for the republic and good for the well-being of all, and protect the liberties given to God. They don't bestow those liberties, they protect those liberties. And so if we should never, ever, ever elect another president that will not agree to the peaceful transfer of power. I'm sorry.
Yep.
No,
We should never, ever, ever elect another elected official that doesn't understand the fundamentals of the Constitution, what they were meant to accomplish and what they are about, and how this nation can continue to prosper. We have prospered as a nation because of our being able to overcome our own sins, our own problems, our own stuff, our own mess.
Yeah, that's good.
Generation after generation after generation, we come out better. I hope we can come out better on this one.
And Reverend,
Reverend,
and to Sophia, and I just asked you both because you're black and we're not. Is color blind? Well, it's a question for everybody though. Like, is color blindness still the idea? Is that the ideal?
No. I like differences. I mean, color blindness, I think the content of character is important.
Yep.
And is significant, and we should look for that. To be honest, okay, so
Let me interject, hold your thought, Pastor. So to quote Justice Harlan in the Plessy versus Ferguson case of 1896, which established separate but equal, he said, in order to be color blind, one must first be color conscious.
Wow.
Put that for a while, meditate.
Wow. What year was
And
that?
1896. And
Wow.
what Justice Harlan is saying is, don't play this game with me. I'm a white guy, and I'm telling you right now, in order for me to get to the place where I don't see color, I first must do everything that everybody on this panel has been discussing tonight. Know your history, know the Constitution, understand how far we've come, understand the obstacles, understand the inequities and the injustices. And once you understand them, you will look at your fellow man with respect and admiration and camaraderie and fellowship, and you won't see his color because you will have understood his journey. There it is in a nutshell.
Great.
And Bill, we've made some fundamental flaws because we've allowed. See, if there's a permanent victim, then there's a permanent victimizer. You see, and that's critical race theory. It looks at everything through the lens of one-sidedness. We've got to get to this. To the content of character says, hey, what's your character like? What's your character? That's one of the things I loved about athletics. Was eventually, guess what? The cream is going to rise to the top. Eventually, the good are going to excel. And so I think we as a nation, we have to get back to I love the diversity of our nation and the fact that we can be to be honest, I love the fact that we can elect Muslims to elected office. I don't care that they're, because guess what? Sharia law is against the Constitution. You can't have, the Constitution is the prevailing law of the land as it relates to civil interaction and how we treat each other and how we should be treating and how we should be governing and casting and writing laws, not our religious beliefs as it relates to how a society is run, but based on our collective belief in the Constitution and allegiance to the Constitution.
Brian, I think and I don't know if you're trying to wrap us out, that's your job, not mine, but my kind of last thought about this is that as I talked about my great-great-grandparents, people have asked me, how can you love your great-great-grandfather or think about writing something about him? He was a slave owner's son. And I'm like, I didn't choose him to be in the lineage of my family. He is in the lineage of my family. And I know he loved my grandmother so much, he gave up his entire life left because had they caught him and her, they both would have been put to death. It wouldn't have been just her. They'd have hung him right along with her. Yeah. And I think about that. And I think about, I would love to sit down and be able to have a cup of coffee with him and just talk to him, be like, what were you thinking?
And you will one day. Yeah.
Right. You're right. And I think about, I love him because he loved her and because he's in my bloodstream right now as I sit here. And so we have to have that grace that I think the pastor talked about, that we always say what we would do if we lived in 1700 or what we would do if we don't know what the hell we would do because we live in the 21st century and we have a whole different set of privileges. I have privileges as a Black woman living in 2026 that my great-grandmother in the 1920s South Carolina did not have. I mean, at all. So, we have made progress, and I really get frustrated when people say we haven't, because we have. And I think we are looking through a very negative lens right now because we're in a negative moment. But I think America, my money's on America I don't know how, but we're going to get out of this somehow.
Love it.
So is Nancy Pelosi's money. Her money is on America doing well in particular.
The American stock market.
All right, we're going to wrap it up here. Bill, any last thoughts, my friend?
Just happy Martin Luther King Day, everybody. It was just a
Yes.
wonderful show. I love the honesty on the show. I love the openness.
Yeah, it's what we had. We had a great show. TJ, any last thoughts, my friend?
I had a dream last night, but I'm not going to talk about it.
You've been saving that.
With him.
And now you know why we wrapped this up after an hour. Yeah,
This was great. This was great. I'm
It
grateful
was. Hey.
for Michael Faulkner's joining us today.
And I'm also going to announce very, very happily on our show, which I hope it doesn't bother Michael, but Michael is joining the No Bull Media Group, and we are starting up a Restoring the American Dream is going to be his show. It's also going to be football, family, and faith, as you can imagine. And I think those are going to be two wonderful, wonderful shows that we're going to have here. So thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Michael's with the New York Jets.
Yeah.
The New York Jets player. Yep.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody. It's been a wonderful. Thank you so much for watching. And make sure to catch us tomorrow. Tomorrow, we are going to bring up the Greenland scenario. I think it's time that we start getting a little bit rough and talking about some difficult things on this show. So
Beautiful place.
thank you, everybody, for joining. Thanks,
Place.
Bill. Thanks, Sophia. Michael, it was wonderful having you. Thanks, TJ. Wrap it up. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
All right.
Brian.
Take
Good
care
night.
now. The No Bull Political Arena is on all major social media platforms. Make sure to give us and your host a follow.
Hey everybody, this is Sophia Nelson. Follow me at I am Sophia Nelson on every one of my social media platforms.
I'm Bill O'Reilly, and you can reach me at Twitter at WFBOR.
Hey, this is TJ. Follow me on X or Twitter at TJ McCormack.
This is Brian Mistro, and you can follow me on X at Brian_Mistro or follow along on Facebook at Brian.Mistro.
A No Bull Media Group member.